We're back here, Drew and Brandon talking sports. We're in our own, living spaces, as you can clearly tell. The studio was occupied by a couple people, so not recording in the studio at least
Yeah.
today. You may see maybe some probably see studio content next week. Um, but we've talked about it the past probably month. It's a time of the year I'm pretty excited for mock draft season. There's two drafts that I do enjoy, and the other two I probably don't really follow, other than maybe the top few picks, and that's football and basketball. Those are to me the two best drafts. I think they're the two most popular drafts as well, just in general. Not that that's a good or bad thing, just feel like I should say it. So NFL mock drafts over the summer. We got the NBA mock drafts. Those are a couple of my. If I had to pick like my favorite videos, I don't know that I'd be able to tell you for sure that's my favorite, but NFL mock drafts would be up there. NBA mock draft. I actually think I like the NBA draft more. Um, maybe not last year. I don't know though. I liked last year's NBA draft. Last year's NFL draft to me was like an elite. Like the class may not end up being great, but that was like prospect wise. I thought that was a much more star studded draft. Specifically the quarterback position than this year's draft. I
Yeah.
think that goes without saying, really, though. And then the baseball, hockey drafts. I don't. I think it's so hard to follow those drafts, like because somebody gets drafted, you may not see them for 3 years, maybe more. Like nowadays, I think you see them earlier than you probably would have, but you're still waiting a long time to see a player, if you know. So
Yeah. And then like in those two drafts, I actually do prefer baseball. I still like basketball and football better, but I actually like it as a pretty close second, I guess, to whatever basketball or football, whichever one would be second for me. But yeah, I mean like baseball, you can get guys who are drafted out of high school or college or just international guys, so it's hard to follow all that. And then hockey, it's international guys or college guys, but obviously college hockey isn't that big, so it's hard to follow those guys. So yeah, I mean, obviously college basketball, college football, you know who those guys are. It's obviously easier in college basketball because it's just less guys, but yeah, there's a reason why those two are the biggest drafts. It's because you just know who the names are before the draft even happens.
yeah, for sure. But I guess we'll just get into our mock draft. As you can see on the screen, I did put the draft order. This is the best layout I could think of. I think it looks all right. So So yeah, did you want to lead off? Well, I think we'll go you one, you two, me two, and we'll just
We'll just go from there. All right.
yeah.
Yep. So first overall, so the first pick is the Jaguars. I'm gonna go with Aiden Hutchinson. Personally, this is what I'll say about Aiden Hutchinson. I don't really know how much I like him as a prospect, to be honest. Obviously, he had an insane year last year. I think he had 14 and a half sacks in 14 games, I think it was last year in Michigan. But I just don't
About
know how
that.
much I love him, to be honest. Like, I don't truly view him as like just one of those generational type pass rushers. I think he can be a good pass rusher, but I think he needs a lot of breaks. I think he definitely needs to improve his game a lot in order to become like a truly elite pass rusher. But for the Jaguars in this position, I think it's really the only choice. Now, I could have went offensive line here as well. But obviously with Lawrence, you know him on a rookie deal, you want to build up your offensive line while you can. I think that's an option. I think it's a possibility, but all the money that they've been spending in free agency. I know that Cam Robinson, their offensive tackle, they franchised him, so it seems to make sense that they'd be going pass rusher here, even though they've kind of done that in the past. But with him being the number one overall prospect, no matter what you think, obviously it does make sense for the Jaguars to take him number one.
Yeah, so I think there's two ways that I typically approach mock drafts, and that's the first one is what I think is going to happen, and the second one is what I would do if I were these teams. I think the safe pick is for sure Aiden Hutchinson. Now, I think there are some years where you would ask me and you'd say, "What do you think is more likely, that the number one pick is the best player in the draft, or literally anybody else in the draft?" There's a couple years where I would honestly probably have bet on the first overall pick to be the best player from that draft over the rest of the field. Not often, right? Because that's like the odds of that are, even though it
Yeah,
is the first overall pick, the odds of that are crazy. But this is a year where I would bet the field pretty much like instantly. I'm taking Aiden Hutchinson as well. I think it's the smartest pick. I think it's a relatively safe pick. I do think he's a guy that in 5 years we'll look at and he probably has three Pro Bowls. Um, is a high motor player, is stable in the locker room. But is he going to be the guy that we look back in 5 years and say, like, wow, this is a huge draft class led by Aiden Hutchinson? I don't think so. I think he'll be, you know, in 5 years from now when the NFL Instagram or whatever makes a post about this draft class, I think Aiden Hutchinson will be there. Is he going to be on that front page though? Probably not. That's my guess. So, but I go Aiden Hutchinson one because can I tell you who that number one guy is going to be? I have some guesses, but I couldn't tell you like for sure. And for me to take some of these players at number one that I would be betting on, I think is just a little bit of a stretch, at least for this first mock draft. I may get a little bit more creative as we go forward, but I think
Yeah.
Hutchinson's a good pick at one.
So yeah, it's the same number one. Number two, it's the Lions with the second pick. I'm gonna go with Trayvon Walker for them. Now I think he's risen in draft boards, the last couple weeks, ever since college season ended. He's from Georgia, defensive end. He's 6'5", 270, and he ran a 4.51 40. So clearly eye-popping stats and numbers are being thrown out at you. Considering his weight, his height, and the way that he can move. I think that's really what teams are looking for, that he's just a freak athlete, which I think that's never the wrong thing to do. If you have a freak athlete, as long as you could teach him, and again, he's obviously a really good pass rusher and everything like that, but he definitely leans on that athleticism to help him a lot. But if he can get better with mechanics, and all his different positions and styles and techniques, then it could become an elite pass rusher, like elite pass rusher. So I really like this pick for them. It's hard for them here. Obviously, they're not going to go quarterback here. You obviously took Penei Sewell last year. I guess you potentially could go Evan Neal if you wanted to, but it wouldn't exactly make sense for them here. So I feel like they were to stay at number two, which I believe that they would because of a guy like Trayvon Walker here at number two. I think they would stay. It brings you immediate impact on your defense, which was obviously really bad last year. So I think it's a really good pick for them. And yeah, Trayvon Walker out of Georgia going second in mine.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick because that's what I have as well. I debated a couple spots. I don't think this is a draft where we have to have the exact same order. I think
Yeah,
previous years, last year was a year that the first six picks we probably have four or five the same picks.
yeah,
Um, this year, I think as we get through more mock drafts, and even this mock draft too, I don't think it'll be the exact same. But I do have Trayvon Walker going here as well. I think there's a good chance. Honestly, I'm not gonna spoil my next pick, but I think there's a good chance we see three edge players in the first three picks. I think there's a chance. Is it the most likely situation? I don't know, but it might be what I'm mocking. We'll see. Um, yeah, I agree. I think I agree with everything you said. He's a guy that's risen in draft boards pretty much since the season ended, and I think if you're taking this guy, there's a chance he goes number one. If he goes
yeah,
number
there is.
one, I guess you're essentially saying we see Trayvon Walker getting much better than he was in college, and we're not sure we see that out of Aiden Hutchinson. We might have seen his ceiling. I don't think we have for either player seen their ceilings yet. But yeah, I'll go Trayvon Walker too. I think there's a good chance that when we look back in 5 years, this could be the guy that we see on the front page of that post. That's wow, this 2022 draft class was really strong.
Yeah. So again, first two picks the same. Third pick Texans. I'm going Evan Neal here. Again, this could be, I could easily see him going with defensive end here. Obviously, there's still one big one left, but I think you need to build up that offensive line. Obviously, Deshaun Watson's out. He's not going to be on that team anymore. So right now it's Davis Mills, who obviously had a pretty good year last year for being, what was he, a fourth round pick? I think he was fourth or fifth round pick. Was one of the better rookie quarterbacks. Considering all the other guys went in the first round, he was probably second or third best if you just look at stats and production. So who knows if he's actually the answer there for the future or not. But let's say he is. You still got to build up that offensive line anyways. You have an elite prospect like Evan Neal, obviously from Alabama, SEC. I love when offensive linemen are from the SEC because they're going up against the best competition. So considering the fact that he was playing left tackle at Alabama, I think he only let up 2 sacks in 15 games last year. So obviously really productive. And it just has all the attributes and characteristics of an elite offensive tackle and obviously especially left tackle. So I think it's a great pick. They could get him, to fill that spot at left tackle.
Yeah. By the way, Davis Mills was drafted 67th overall, so he's an early third.
So third, yeah, third round
The
pick.
only reason I knew he was a third, I just didn't know exactly when, was because there was when we drafted Mac Jones, there was talks about is there a chance you could have gotten David? I mean, I don't want to get off track, but there was a conversation. Could you have essentially gotten Mac Jones, light at 67 instead of 15 and traded up to get Micah Parsons at 10 or whatever. And then, anyways, third overall, I think the Texans are in a spot where I'm sorry, but I don't think any particular person in this draft at 3 is going to turn this team around. I think you draft best overall player, even if it's at a strength or if it's, whatever. I have them going Kayvon Thibodeau. Is it a bit of a risky pick? Maybe, right? I mean, he was a guy that was mocked to go number 1 for at least a good amount of time, and now he's kind of fallen off. Not falling off, but like, I mean, we could see Kayvon Thibodeau go as low as like 8 or 9. We could see him go as high as like we could see him still go 1.
Yeah.
But I think he could legitimately go as high as 1 and as late as like 9. I'm gonna have him go 3 here to the Texans. I think there's a lot they can do with this pick. Their roster, frankly, is just not good. They can pretty much reasonably draft anything they want here. They could trade down if they really wanted to. I think this is a draft where probably multiple teams will want to trade down. I don't know if there's going to be many buyers looking to trade up. So they may just have to take this pick, which I think is fine, right? I mean, you're more than happy to take it, but I do have them going Kayvon Thibodeau. I do think he is, talent-wise, can be a top 3 player in this draft. So
Yeah, I have Kayvon going in the next pick, which is the Jets at 4. Again, you could go from 1, you could go anywhere as low as 8 or 9, like you said. I think it's entirely possible. And again, the one thing about him was that he doesn't have a great motor, or like he just doesn't give it his all at all times, which is definitely concerning at some times. But then we've seen players in the past, whether it's NFL, NBA, whatever, who have that same kind of feeling about them coming out of the draft. And then if they get the right coaching staff, they get the right people around them, they can put it together. And obviously his talent's there. I mean, there's a reason why he was mocked as the number 1 guy the entire last season. It's because he has the talent to be the number 1 guy. So if the Jets can get him at 4, and if with a guy like Saleh there as head coach, like I think that he can. I think he's the right guy to be able to kind of coach this guy up and be able to have him, be all in at all times. So if he can get that out of him, I mean, you're getting arguably the number 1 player in this draft. So I think it's a huge draft for them. Again, they have 2 picks inside the top 10. It's a perfect draft class for them to draft because you already have the quarterback who's going into his second year. You should have to fill out the other spots in a draft class like this. There's so many different positions that you could draft because there's not like heavy quarterbacks or anything like that. So this is a big draft for the Jets, and I think if they got Kayvon at 4, I think that's a huge plus to what you would assume would be a really good draft with another one at 10.
yeah, so this pick might be a little high. I'm not too sure. I don't think it is that high, but I'm gonna go 4. I'm gonna go Sauce Gardner to the Jets at 4. I do think there's 2 corners in this draft that are being mocked as either the one or number 1 or number 2, and that's Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley. I think I prefer Sauce Gardner right now. I honestly though, any given year, these could be both of these corners could be a number 1 corner in the draft in any given year. I do think both these corners will end up being really good. I think Stingley has a lot more question marks than Gardner, but I think there's a very good chance that Gardner can be not Revis. I don't think anybody's going to be Revis because Revis is probably the best corner I've ever seen, and I don't think it's really that close. And there's also the game's just completely different. I don't think it's realistically feasible for a corner to just shut a man down or a side of the field down like a Revis did. But I do think Gardner will be the best corner from this draft, and I think that the Jets could use a corner. So I have them taking Gardner here at 4. This could, I mean, honestly, I could have mocked Gardner at 10 to the Jets. Like that's how not volatile, but that's how the picks are not set in stone at all. Like I could have
No.
honestly waited to 10 for Gardner, but I had them take him at 4.
Yeah. But for number 5, it's going to the other New York team. It's the Giants. I have them taking Ike Ekwonu. Again, I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. But he's the offensive tackle out of NC State. This just makes sense. Obviously, they need offensive line help. If Neal's going to be off the board, and again, those 3 pass rushers are going to be off the board, which that does seem like that should be the top 4. It should be those. So let's assume that those guys are off the board. This is the best guy available for you. And again, it's offensive line. Danny Jones isn't going to be the answer there, but you will have a quarterback there soon, whether it's next year, the year after, whatever it is. But you still need to build up that offensive line. I think it's still a solid pick. I think he could be a solid player for you. I don't know if he's going to be better than Evan Neal or not, but I think if you get him, you're happy with that at 5. Again, they have another pick at 7, so you're looking for a big draft this year. And I think this is a good start. Obviously, gets protection for Jones when he's back there, but then you obviously hope that Barkley, assuming he's healthy, can have a big year behind what you would think would be a better offensive line. But again, has to start with here at 5 or 7. But again, I have him at 5, taking Equanu from NC State.
Yeah, so for the Giants at 5, I debated Equanu as well. I believe his technical first name is Ekem, but yeah, I think his nickname is like Icky or whatever.
Yeah.
Do they say nicknames at the draft? Like not nicknames, but like I forget how that exactly works. I believe they say
Well,
like your preferred first name because like they didn't say like Dakota Prescott or whatever, right? So
yeah. I mean, well,
or
I guess
what's his
Sauce
first name?
Gardner will really be the it's Dakota, but I think Sauce Gardner will probably be the question to that because his name's Ahmed, so his name's not obviously not Sauce, but
Yeah, that's true. At 5 though, I've got a guy that you already took earlier, Evan Neal. I think if you and, the safest bet to me, if you need an offensive tackle this draft is Evan Neal. Um, I have him going at 5 to the Giants. I think, listen, if you're going to commit to Daniel Jones for one more year, I like the idea of saying, all right, you've got no excuses. We're going to try to get Saquon back healthy for you. That should, in theory, be a top 10 running back, even coming off all the injuries and all the just weirdness with Saquon Barkley that just happens. Um, you should theoretically have the weapons. We went out last offseason and signed Kenny Galladay. Hopefully he's healthy for a whole season. He shouldn't have any excuses. And honestly, after about beginning of November, they should have an idea as to whether Daniel Jones is the guy or not. To me, if I'm the Giants, I don't think it's smart to take a quarterback early in this draft at all. But honestly, take a shot on a guy in the 3rd round or 4th round. Feel free to take a shot on a guy in the 3rd and a guy in the 6th. Give Daniel Jones some competition in training camp, and if the guy in the 3rd round really impresses, then you can either start him, which I think is a little bit risky, but at least if Daniel Jones isn't playing well beginning of November, you have a guy that you can go to. So I'm going Evan Neal at 5. I think it's a safe pick. I think he'll be a solid offensive lineman for the next decade, hopefully. I mean, that's what you sign up for when you draft an offensive lineman at 5. So, yeah, I'm going Evan Neal.
yeah, if Neal was there in my mock draft at 5, I think that's a perfect answer for them. Would be Neal, like you said, he's definitely the more stable and at least the most confident I would be in an offensive tackle. But again, if he's not on the board, that's your next best option in Aquanu. But moving to 6 now. Now we didn't do trades on our mock draft, at least for this one. We still have 2 more to do. But this is where I think the first 5 teams would keep their picks, but the Panthers at 6, I believe that they would trade this pick just in this draft alone. They have this pick at 6, and then their next pick is all the way in the 4th round at 108. So that's a lot of time to not have draft picks for a team that obviously isn't that good and needs help in a lot of areas. So if we were doing trades, I'd for sure have them trading down, getting a second, getting a third, obviously moving down in the 1st round. Not that much farther down, but obviously getting a couple draft picks back to replenish your stock. But again, keeping them at 6 here. I have them taking Malik Willis. Um, I think that I don't love any of the quarterbacks in this draft, to be honest, between him, Pickett, Corral, Howell, but I think Willis definitely has the most upside. Now, again, he definitely has the lowest floor because he's went to Liberty, obviously not a huge college or anything like that. Still was pretty a little inconsistent at times, but he has a great arm, great athleticism. He has the traits to be like one of those a guy who can become really good. He definitely has to learn a lot, but I think it's a shot in the dark. Obviously, right now you have Darnold, but I mean that's obviously not an answer. So I think you take a shot on him at 6. Who knows what happens with Matt Rule, whatever happens with that team. But you have weapons. You have Christian McCaffrey, assuming he stays healthy. You have DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. So you have some weapons offensively. I think if you were to put him in, I don't know if he'd start right away or not, but I think that'd be a good pick for them. Again, obviously the question is if he can really become an NFL starter, but I think you have to take that shot when you don't really have a future for quarterback. really anytime soon. So I have Willis going 6 to Carolina.
Yeah, to me, this is the. I would be pretty. I'm in total agreement with you. I would be shocked if they kept this pick.
Yeah,
But if they do keep it, I think Willis is the play that they go for. I think you treat Darnold at this point as a guy that can offer competition to your next guy, and he's more of a lottery pick. I mean, he's like a lottery ticket at this point. Like you should not expect Darnold to be anything. He's a guy that can offer some competition, maybe fill in a couple gaps if needed, a solid backup. But is he a guy that I'm banking on being my next quarterback? No, I don't think they are gonna have to. I don't think they're gonna bank on that either. If they don't take Willis at 6 and they do trade down, I would say take a shot. If you like a guy in the third, take a guy in the third. If you want to trade down and grab Pickett at, I don't know, maybe he goes 15. Trade down and grab Pickett at 15. Take somebody here. I think with the quarterback position, it is kind of a waste to go a whole year and not have a guy that like you think can be something in the future. That's how I look at it.
yeah.
So that's what I would say. But yeah, I think at 6, if they don't trade down or anything and they really do love Malik Willis, then take Malik Willis. I'm not, if this does happen on the draft, do I love the pick? Not necessarily, but do I respect the way they're going about the pick? Yeah, I do, because I think if you really like a guy, if you like your quarterback, there's no, I don't think you really play the game of like, can I trade down to 11 and hope he falls to 11 and get an extra third? Like you just take your guy and you celebrate the fact that you just got your quarterback for the next 12 years. So
Yeah.
I'll mock him at 6 to the Panthers.
Yeah. So in agreement there, but going to 7 again, the Giants again. So again, two of the last three picks to the Giants. Like I said, I had them taking offensive line in their fifth pick, and I said if none of those defensive guys were there, then I'd wait until that seventh pick, and this is obviously where it is. I'd take Jermaine Johnson. He's outside that top three of guys behind Walker, Thibodeau, and Hutchinson. It's a little bit of a risky pick. Again, he seems he's definitely been graded like decently well, not as high as the other guys, obviously, but 6'5", 250, ran a 4.58, not bad. He seems like a guy that you can definitely get more potential out of, but I think it's still a solid pick. They need help on the defensive line and rushing the passer. They struggled that all last year. I think Azeez Ojulari, their pick, I think it was last year, led them in sacks, but I don't even believe it was double digits. So they clearly need help on the defensive line and getting to the quarterback. And I think he can help. He may not be instant impact right away, but I think that, in the next 2, 3 years, I think he'll just progressively get better and better. I don't know if he's ever going to be a 15 sack guy, but I think he can give you solid production and getting to the quarterback.
Yeah, so number 7 here, I had the Giants taking Evan Neal. I have them going defense here. I don't have them going Jermaine Johnson. I have them going Derek Stingley. At least in this mock draft, I have the two corners going maybe slightly higher than most mock drafts would have them going towards. I think most mocks probably have them 9 to 14. I have them, 4 to 7. So that's a little high maybe, but I do think these are two very good cornerback prospects. Derek Stingley, there's question marks because the dominant freshman year and then has just kind of a non-existent past 2 years. You would almost like to just forget them. Had he could have gone into the NFL draft after his freshman year of college, he would have, and he probably would have been a top 5 pick, maybe even higher. The last 2 years, though, I think are years to forget. He's falling, but I think he won't fall much further than 7 if he does fall further than 7 in the real draft. So I have him taking Derek Stingley. And I think there's a chance we look back and honestly, this could be to me, I think the cornerback position has seen a bit of a dip in the past, 5 to 8 years. Is a lot of that because the game has just changed a lot? Yes. Is also a lot of it because we haven't seen a great cornerback in the first so many picks since Jalen Ramsey? Also, yes. I think this could be a draft where we look back and say, what were teams doing, thinking about taking Aiden Hutchinson at 1 when Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley were sitting there for them to take. So I have them taking Stingley. And I think Stingley's going to be great. I do. So.
Yeah, like you said, you took your corners a little bit early. Mine are a little bit later. But I could for sure see corners going a little bit earlier. Because again, this draft, there's so many different variables between prospects and guys. You really don't know where they're going to go. We probably won't know until draft really happens. But at number 8, I have a guy who, speaking of not knowing where someone could go, I've seen this guy mocked at the top of the draft, even to where I have him right now at number 8 to the Falcons, even a couple picks down. It's Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame. I I don't know really how to feel about this now. Safeties, I don't love taking safeties early in the first round. I think the best example of that is Jamal Adams. Like now, obviously he was high. I think he was fifth overall, but even still, like you just don't take It's not a position that's super necessary on a defense. If he's really good, you're gonna have to pay him. And a safety just doesn't do much in today's game. You'd rather have a corner, or defensive end, even linebacker, obviously. So I don't know how much I love taking a safety that high in the draft, but obviously they have AJ Terrell, who they took last year, which I didn't really know, or they took in the previous draft, but I didn't really know how good he was going to be. He was actually he played really well last year, which surprised me. So if he truly can be a number one corner for you, maybe you don't have to look at corner. Again, I don't love any defensive end options that are right here that are left after those first four guys went. So I think Kyle Hamilton's a good fit for the Falcons. Now, obviously, they have a ton of needs. Obviously, offensively, they do. I could for sure see him taking an offensive guy. I could see him trading down a couple picks, maybe taking a receiver in the middle of the teens. But I think if they were to stay at 8, I think Hamilton's a good pick for them. I think he definitely has upside. A lot of people really do like him. He's a little bit slow for being a safety. He ran a 4.6, but I think it's a solid pick, but I also wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons possibly move down a couple of picks as well, because obviously they're in full rebuild mode with Mariota there. Ryan's gone. Obviously, all their weapons are gone too. So it's a tricky pick, but I think if they were to stay, I'd have them taking Kyle Hamilton.
So the Falcons were a team that 4 years ago had a really promising receiving core. Now they essentially have nothing. I think you have to probably address you have to address it. I mean, weapons are getting only more important in the NFL, and frankly, when you don't, even when you do or don't have a strong quarterback, it's really hard to justify having no weapons going into a year. I think this is a draft pick where they go receiver. I'm gonna have them taking Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver from Ohio State. Is he my favorite wide receiver in the draft? I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think so. The wide receiver is the position that I think I need probably a little bit more time to really get a firm opinion on. Like I think corners I have a pretty firm opinion on. I think the pass rushers I have a firm opinion on. Rank if I were to rank them 1 through 4 or 1 through whatever in the first round. Wide receiver is a position where like I think I can see the most development in my mock draft through the next 3 mocks or whatever we end up doing. So, but I'll have the Falcons taking Garrett Wilson at 8. No Ridley. Probably. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that. The suspension. Does he even want to play for the Falcons? Is he going to get traded at some point? Well, who knows? Obviously, no Julio. So I think they should make a move, and I think Garrett Wilson's a safe wide receiver pick at 8. So.
Yeah, like I said before, I think I could definitely see them trading down a couple picks and then taking a receiver. I think eight's maybe a little high for a receiver. I think you could trade down. Even if you don't get Wilson, you can get Olave, you can get Williams, even though he's injured. Drake London as well. So I think you could for sure trade down. I think that's probably what they will do is trade down. But yeah, I do agree. They definitely do need a receiver. It's hard in a draft like this, especially not to take a receiver. But I think they should trade down. But moving on to 9, Seahawks. Again, difficult kind of situation, similar to the Falcons, obviously in a rebuild mode, treating their quarterback. Um, I could see him taking a corner, but I was thinking about putting one of those two corners. I still haven't gone off my mock draft yet at 9 to the Seahawks, but I'm going to go offensive line. I'm going to go Charles Cross from Mississippi State. He's a tackle. Obviously, they still need help on the offensive line. They lost their other tackle, Dwayne Brown, who's technically still on the team, but I don't know, is he retiring or is he going to get cut? Like, whatever that situation is, doesn't really seem like he's going to be on the team at the start of the season. So I think they need offensive line help. I think that you can get a guy like Charles Cross here. Again, he's not the top, the highest rated guy in offensive line, but I think he's a solid tackle. I think he's someone that you could rely on at least to at least hold up his side of the line. Will he be an all-pro Pro Bowler type guy? I don't think so. I think maybe he can make a Pro Bowler too, but I think it's a solid pick here. If you want to go corner, I totally understand it. It makes sense if those, one of those two guys are on the board. I agree with that pick. But I wouldn't be opposed to offensive line. I think the guys off the board already. I think Charles Cross is probably the best pick there at 9 if you did want to go offensive line.
Yeah, so number 9 for me, this is kind of just like to me, this is if this happens in the draft for Seattle, you're pretty happy about it. I have them going offensive line as well. I think they're in a position where you take the best player overall, and Ikwonu is a guy that could go as high as like 3 and as low as like. I think this is about as low as you're going to see him go in a draft. Maybe he goes lower than this. I don't know, but I think if you can get Ikwonu at 9 for the Seahawks, I think you're pretty happy with that because him and Evan Neal are a guy that are I don't know maybe a 1A 1B. That maybe there's some people that prefer Ikwonu over Neal. Maybe there's some people that prefer Neal. I think Neal is a safer pick, like he talked about. I just think a guy that can compete against SEC level talent, especially at the offensive line, is like I think that's a pretty big advantage coming out of the draft. But I do think Ikwonu has potential to be just as good as Evan Neal, if not better. So I think if the Seahawks get him at 9, you're pretty happy with that. So I'll have him taking Ikwonu.
Yeah, so we both go offensive line, different guys, but same philosophy. But moving to 10, now again, this is the second of the Jets picks. This is where I have a corner going. And again, he may not be there at 10. I think he will be, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's not. But it's Sauce Gardner. If the Jets were able to get Kayvon and Sauce for at 4 and 10, I think that'd be a home run of a draft right there. Obviously, you still have other picks, but for two of your first, your two first round picks, get those guys. I think that's just great. These guys are, Kayvon was the number one guy, like we talked about. Sauce has been the number one corner. Great in college. I think he does translate to the NFL. Now, like you said, is he going to be a Revis type? Is he going to be one of those types? I don't know. I think he is a lockdown kind of guy. He's 6'3", 190, so he's got good size. Ran a 4.4, so I think that's really good speed too. But I think he's going to be an impactful player. And again, they need secondary. They need help at corner. It makes sense, obviously, from that way. Build up that defense. Obviously, you still need weapons offensively for Wilson, but with guys like this in the draft in the top 10, on the defensive side of the ball, it's hard to pass up those guys. So I think if you were to be able to get Sauce and Kayvon at 4 and 10, like I said, I think that's a home run of a draft already. So yeah, Sauce at 10, I think is a great pick.
Yeah, so number 10 for me, this is honestly, I would agree. I think if you can get Sauce Gardner at 10, I think you're pretty happy as a Jets fan. Um, I have them going offense here. I'm going to take Treylon Burks. Now, the reason I'm going here, I think, is again, it's like, I don't know how many more years you're going to give Wilson. This is obviously still a rebuilding team. I think you want to be able to go through a full year with Wilson, though, and say, he actually had a competent enough offense that we should be able to see at least more than a few throws a game where we're like, okay, I can see why we took this guy at number 2 overall. If they don't get any offensive talent going into the season from this point on, if they don't draft a guy on offense and high overall and they don't really have much, then I don't know. I'm a little bit worried because unless Wilson does do great with nothing almost, then it's like I don't know what I can take away from it. Like, I mean, I'm gonna probably say he's bad anyways because I've never been a Wilson guy. But if I am a Wilson guy, what can I take away from not doing well with like the Jets team? I just. But if you give him a guy that can be like, like a deep like the 49ers Debo Samuel, or just a guy that can be the go-to guy, the security blanket, while also being like a spark plug at the same time, a guy who can be like a top. He may not be a pure top like 7 wide receiver or a pure top 7 whatever, but he's like a top 15, top 30 player. I think he can be like a similar to Debo Samuel type of guy. If you can get that for Wilson, I think that's big because again, I just don't want to. I don't want to go through years with Wilson where I'm like, I don't know what to take away from this season because he had nothing to work with. So
Yeah, I think if Sauce wasn't there at 10, I would agree. I think you can possibly even trade down a couple of picks and get a wide receiver. Or if there's wide receiver you want to take at 10, you take him at 10. But for me personally, I think if Sauce is there at 10, that's a hard guy to pass up. Is that could be a true number one lockdown corner for 8 seasons, 10 seasons. That's just hard to come by. But yeah, they're gonna do something offensively with Wilson. But going on to 11, it's the Commanders. Feels a little weird to say that,
by the
but
way, sorry not to cut you off. I'm just gonna call them football team because honestly,
Yeah,
that's just a better name than the Commanders. I'm sorry,
I'll probably
but
just say Washington, to be honest. I think that's even easier.
I
But yeah,
agree.
I
I think
don't.
that's what we've done for the most part, right? But
Yeah, I don't know if I've actually ever even called them like football team. I think I've always just said Washington. So, okay, so Washington at 11. Again, this is where I have my other corner going, Derek Stingley. They need help secondary again. Now, could they use maybe a weapon offensively? Now they brought Wentz in. Obviously, we'll see what happens with that situation. But I kind of do like what they have going offensively. I think they have some pieces there. Obviously, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson at running back. Line they lost. I know they lost Sheriff to the Jaguars, but it's still like an okay line. And again, I don't. Maybe you go offensive line here. I don't know if there's really a guy at 11 that you want. But I think Stingley's again. I think he's a great option. You need help in your secondary, anyways. Again, if he could stay healthy, if he can improve on those last couple of seasons that he had in college, which he should be able to, I think he's a solid player. Now his floor may be he may bust a little bit. I think he has that potential, but I do like him as a player. I think he's gonna be solid. Will he be as good as Sauce? I don't think so. But I think if you get Derek Stingley at 11, I think you're happy with that. I don't think you can come away with that pick and be mad or anything like that. So. I think it's a good pick for them at 11 if they do go that route. And, like I said, I obviously have them going that route and taking him at 11.
yeah, so 11 here. I think Washington needs a good amount of stuff. I think they could go offense. I even debated to have them take like Chris Olave at 11, which I think is a pretty sizable reach. That could be something I do in the future. Right now, I'm not going to do it. I think they could reasonably go a lot of things here. I have them going player over position essentially at pick 11. I'm assuming you know who I'm going to say now. I'm going to say Kyle Hamilton. He's a guy you talked about a little while ago. He's a guy that
Yeah.
the safety position has stock. If their position was a stock, it's dropped throughout the past few years. And you brought up a good point in Jamal Adams. The position's just not as important right now, at least in the NFL. But a guy like Kyle Hamilton's a guy that, if you just took position out of it, is like a top 5 just player in the class, arguably, maybe even higher, right? I mean, he's a guy that could be the number 1 player in the class in 5 years from now. So I think Washington says, okay, we can either reach on a guy like Chris Olave maybe at 11 or a different wide receiver, or we can take, somebody else, or we can take the best player in the draft who, if the safety position stock weren't so low, probably goes in the top like 6 or 7 in this draft. So I think they say we like the value here at 11 for Kyle Hamilton, and we take him and, we move on.
Yeah, I actually like Hamilton at 11 to Washington. Like I said, I don't know if he'd go to at 8 for Falcons, in the real draft, but I do like that at 11, actually. I could definitely see that happening. But moving on to 12, Vikings. These next two picks, it's the Vikings and the Texans. I honestly wasn't really sure where to go, to be honest. But again, we had to choose something. So for Vikings, I went Jordan Davis, and obviously he's the defensive tackle out of Georgia. I don't really know how to feel about Jordan Davis. Like, it seems like there's at times he flashes and other times he just doesn't. Obviously, he's a huge guy, 6'6", 340. Um, he's going to clog up the middle for you. I think if a corner was on the table here at 12, they'd go corner. But again, in my mock draft, there's no corners. At least the top 2 guys. Now you can go with a guy like Trent McDuffie if you want to, at 12. But I see him. I don't know where they'd go. I think they'd go corner. But again, I haven't taken Jordan Davis. I don't know how much I love that pick if they were actually to do it. I could probably see Davis going a little bit lower in this draft, but yeah, I just wasn't really sure where to go for the Vikings here. I think they have a lot of needs, and it's kind of hard to pick a specific position for them.
Yeah, the Vikings are another a team that I also had a little bit of trouble with. I debated a few things. I did debate McDuffie. Um, I did debate Davis. I'm gonna have them reach on a position that they probably don't really need, but a position that I think they could realistically take at 12. I'm having them reach on Chris Olave. Now, is it a reach? Yeah, I don't think come the draft, I'm not sure he's going to go 12. With the addition of being able to trade, maybe a couple other guys' stock rise pretty high. I think probably he doesn't go 12. They could reasonably maybe trade down a few spots and get Olave as well. If a team wants to trade up to 12 and take that's a position where we could see Malik Willis or Pickett go. Vikings trade down from 12 to 18. They pick up Olave at 18 or something like that. But Thielen's only getting older. Jefferson looks like he's going to be a top 3 perennial wide receiver going forward, especially as some of the guys in their prime continue to get older. How many more years of prime Devontae are we going to see? How many more years of prime D-Hop are we going to see? Still a few years, but come when they get to their back 9, right? I mean, Jefferson's the number 1 receiver or number 2. It's him and Chase, out of the super young ones at least. I think they say, okay, to avoid like double or triple teams on Jefferson, let's take Olave. Thielen's getting older. Who knows who our quarterback's going to be? Could we make it work if our quarterback was an elite guy? Yes, but if we do have to ride it out with Kirk Cousins and then we pick up another guy who's like a middle, top 15 guy but not a top 9 guy, you need weapons. You need more than just Jefferson. I think Olave is a guy that I think you could plug and play and you could be really good and could be a really solid number 2 receiver for like 7 or 8 years. So
Yeah, it's funny you bring a receiver up. I was debating going Garrett Wilson here, but I just thought, again, it would be insane because, again, Thielen, like you said, it's getting older. Obviously, it seems like they'll probably move off him at some point in the next year or two. So if you were to get a Wilson or a Olave or whatever to go with Jefferson, that would be an elite combo, at least you would assume. But I was definitely debating that. I went defense, but I wouldn't be surprised if they went wide receiver. I think they definitely could. But 13 Texans, like I said, I kind of had trouble with this pick as well. I don't even know how much I love the pick for them. The guy I chose, I love the guy that I chose. I just don't know if it's the right team. I had them taking Tyler Linderbaum, the center from Iowa. Now, again, I would have them taking 2 offensive linemen in the first 13 picks. So I don't know if that's the way they want to go with, again, a lot of defensive guys, a couple wide receivers. But it's for his talent, it's a great pick because he's so talented. I mean, I really do love him coming out of this draft. He's clearly the top center. It's probably between him and Evan Neal, just between best offensive linemen in this draft. And there's probably a good argument that he is the best offensive lineman in this draft. So whatever team does get him, they'll be happy with. Even though it's a center, it's not really the best position. Obviously, a tackle's way more important. But I think center is still an important position. If you have a really solid center, I think your offensive line is just better as a whole. So whatever team does get him, I think they'd be ecstatic to get him. He's been the number 1 guy since, whenever he started playing, freshman year, whatever. He's always been the number 1 guy. Coming out of Iowa, obviously, Iowa's a great, team and or college program to have offensive line guys come out of. So again, whatever team gets him, I have the Texans taking him. I don't know if they'd go 2 offensive linemen, but if they do, they got the 2 best offensive linemen in the draft. If they were to go Neal and Linderbaum, they got the 2 best. I don't think you can be mad with that, even if it's the same position technically. But I've Linderbaum going 13 to the Texans.
yeah, the Texans here, I talked about it earlier in the draft. I think this is a team that you look and say, again, I just want the best player possible. Jordan Davis is a guy you've already taken and a guy who probably, if we're ranking, which prospects combines rose them the most in the draft, Jordan Davis may not be number 1, but he could be. I don't know. He put on a pretty good showing at the combine according to most teams. So I have the Texans taking him at 13. Is it necessarily the biggest need? I don't know. I mean, the reality is they need everything. So I think you just take best player and you figure it out afterwards. So I have them taking Davis. He's a guy that I could see being, who knows if Aaron Donald truly does retire in a year or 2 from now, then this is a guy in 4 years. Again, I could see him being on that like top 5 players from this draft class that were like, wow. I mean, why did teams above 13 not consider taking this guy? He's a 6'6", 350-pound, athletic defensive tackle. Like you just don't see those every year. You just don't. Is he a guaranteed splash? I don't know, but I have the Texans taking him at 13.
Yeah. And speaking of receiver, like you were from the pick before, but 14 Ravens. I've been taking Garrett Wilson. This is my first receiver off the board for me. They obviously need help at receiver. I think Wilson's a good fit here. Now, again, they're getting so many guys back from injuries, running backs, corners, defense, just guys on the defensive side, anyways. I think that getting Wilson, I think, is a good fit. Now, Lamar just needs a receiver. Now, no matter what you think of Lamar, him throwing the ball, obviously, we're not the biggest Lamar fans, but you still need to surround him with a receiver. Now, Hollywood's obviously just not that guy for them in Baltimore. I know they got someone in free agency. Can't exactly remember who, but obviously they have Rashad Bateman from last year. But again, I think that you could take a receiver here. I think it makes sense for you to do that. They got Sammy Watkins. That's who it was. I don't know. I mean, again, did you really improve that much at receiver with Sammy Watkins? I don't think so. I think you could for sure take Wilson here and be really happy about it because, again, he does jump off the board. At Ohio State, he was breaking all types of records along with Olave, but I think that he's just a great prospect to get. And to get him at 14, I think that's a really solid pick. So I think Baltimore fans would be happy with Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, this was a pick that I didn't really know where to go. There was I did debate receiver, but the reality is I've already taken three, and like realistically, are the Ravens gonna reach for like a Jamison Williams at 14? I don't know if it's necessarily a reach, but right now I would classify it. I would probably classify it as a reach. This is a guy I guess has probably fallen in my draft compared to yours. I'm gonna have them take Jermaine Johnson. I think you had him going what as high as
7.
seven. So I have him going at 14. He's fallen in my draft a little bit, but I do think, again, this is a draft that's super volatile. What was the year with Anthony Bennett going first? It was at 2013, I believe.
2013.
That was like the NBA draft where there wasn't really a clear-cut number one, and he wasn't really expected to go number one either. I could see this being that year for the NFL where it's just like, the mock drafts are completely wrong because these guys are all pretty close. So I'm gonna have them going Jermaine Johnson. I think it's a need, and I think he's a guy that, although he's being overshadowed by Aiden Hutchinson, Walker, and Thibodeau, he's a guy that I don't know. Who knows? He could be the best. He could be the best pass rusher in the draft in 5 years from now. I wouldn't be like completely shocked. Would I be surprised? For sure, but
Yeah, and that is an area that they do need is pass rush defensive line. They seem like they were signing not Matthew Judon, Zadarius Smith. That fell apart. He went to the Vikings, so they definitely need help there. So I do actually like that pick, Jermaine Johnson at 14 going to the Ravens. But second to last pick of at least the first 16 that we're doing, and then we're each doing our own teams. But Eagles at 15. I have them taking Trent McDuffie. Now I mentioned him earlier, cornerback out of Washington. I think the Eagles need help at corner. Now I saw some mock drafts, some people talking about possibly a receiver here. I think that's a possibility. Obviously, you took Devonta Smith last year. You have Jalen Reagor you took the year before. Like no matter what you think of him, you still did just take him. I could see him taking a receiver here if they really wanted to. Technically they don't have an answer at quarterback. Jalen Hurts could be, but personally, I don't think he is. But I like him taking corner. Obviously, they have Darius Slay right now, but their second corner, they really don't have one. I think this is a good fit. 5'11", 193, ran a 4.4 40. I think that's solid. I think he'd be a good second corner behind Slay. He's not guarding number one wide receivers the entire time. I think it's a solid pick for them. And to get him at 15 with the first two corners off the board, I think you'd be happy with that pick of Trent McDuffie at 15.
yeah. I also debated McDuffie here, but I'll make a little bit of a joke here. The Eagles are known for drafting busts at wide receiver. Reagor being the most recent one, Jalen Reagor. I'm gonna have them continue that path. At least this is my prediction. I'll have them take Drake London at 15. Now I don't think Drake London is for sure a bust or anything, but out of the wide receiver prospects, he might be my least favorite one. He's a guy that's 6'4". He seems like a contested catch guy, like a throw it up and he's going to try to grab the 50-50 balls, maybe create some separation. But is he a guy that's going to go over the middle and really be that 110 catch guy for you? No, I mean, he's 6'4". So I think the guy, if you had to compare him to, I think the comparisons I've heard is Mike Evans. Now, I think that's his ceiling, and that's not a bad pick, obviously, because Mike Evans is good. But honestly, like, I don't really like Mike Evans. Even if he does turn out to be Mike Evans, which again I think would be his ceiling. I think London is, probably not going to be very good. I think he's going to be too slow to create separation. And in the NFL, I think 50-50 balls are a lot harder than they are in USC. I mean, USC is not in. It's it's not in a strong conference at all. They're not playing, Alabama. They're not playing LSU. He's not playing against Derek Stingley and Derek Stingley's freshman year. He's playing against like I don't even know who.
Sean
I
McDuffie.
think true. I don't know how many games. I don't know how many games they played against each other, but what I'm saying is the level of competition across the board in he played 12 games is not. It's not SEC. It's not. I just don't trust this receiver in the NFL. That's all I'm saying. And I think the Eagles have a track record of drafting not great wide receivers. I think they're going to continue that. So
Yeah, and like I was just saying, like they definitely couldn't take a wide receiver. You're obviously not as high as Drake London as I wouldn't say I'm like high on him either, but seems like you're just pretty low on him. But speaking of
I don't. I mean, I don't
receiver,
want to sound like I'm super low on him, but
yeah,
out of what? I mean, how many wide receivers can we see go in the first round? Five, maybe.
I would say at most five.
Okay, we'll say five go in the first round. I would probably have him as my lowest one, honestly. So I don't think that's what other people would have. So
Yeah. But like I said, speaking of receiver, 16 Saints. I've been taking Jameson Williams. Now again, he tore his ACL in the SEC championship game, so he's not going to be ready for first game of the season. But they said he's progressed really well. They said that he's already doing running, like running routes and everything like that. So they kind of expect him back around Halloween. And again, that timeline could easily change. It could be later, it could be earlier. But there's no doubt that when he's healthy, he's the best receiver in this class, at least in my mind. His speed is just ridiculous. He's the fastest guy in this draft. I guess there's the one guy who ran the four, whatever it was, but the 4.29 or whatever. But I think Williams probably would have ran that. Maybe he maybe even been faster if he never got injured. And he was at the combine. But I mean, he's just an incredible talent, and I think that you can draft him still at 16, and he can miss maybe the first 2 months of the season. May not even be totally healthy his rookie year, but I think he's just someone that like he's going to be one of the top wide receivers for a good amount of time in the NFL. Like his ability to just beat people down the field and just kill people with his speed is exactly what teams are looking for. And I just think it's a great pick for a Saints team that, again, they have some questions. Obviously, salary cap's a huge question. Quarterback for the future. Michael Thomas, what goes on with him in the future? If you keep him, trade him, cut him, whatever. So I think it's just a really solid pick. And to get him at 16, obviously that helps with the ACL injury. I think that's just really good value on the top wide receiver in this draft in my mind.
yeah, wide receiver is the position I said I needed more time to really get a firm opinion on. My two firm opinions on that right now are I agree. I think Williams has the highest ceiling out of the receivers in this draft, and then I think Drake London would be the guy I ranked the lowest out of the first round possible wide receivers. 16 for the Saints. I have them taking a guy that you had going, I believe, like 10 maybe, as high as 10 maybe. I'm having them take Charles Cross. I forget exactly when you had when you went where you had Cross, but
Number 9 to Seattle.
number 9. Okay, yeah. So I have them taking Cross at 16. I think it's good value. I'm not telling you I think it's a steal or anything. Like I think this is 9 to 16 is about where he's gonna go. So I think the Saints take Cross. I think the Saints need a lot of things. I think salary cap has also been an issue for the Saints. Like you talked about, Michael Thomas, he's either gone or he's like not playing, or it's I don't know what's going on with Michael Thomas. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody outside of the organization has a really firm idea other than like he clearly probably isn't going to play another down for the Saints, or if he does, it's like I don't know. So I have them taking Cross. I think he's a guy that can protect Winston, and I think Winston needs protection because if Winston's under pressure, I don't want that to accelerate the interceptions that he's going to throw because he typically is a guy that's known to throw a lot of interceptions. So
Yeah. But that's the first 16 picks, obviously half of the first round. But we're each going to do our own team. So obviously Drew's going to do the Patriots at 21. I'm going to do the Cowboys at 24. I want you to go first because I mean, draft order, they technically are in front. So I'm curious to see who you have them taking. So yeah, 21 Patriots. Who do you have them taking?
So I debated a few things. I think the two positions I want them to take, like, is really cornerback and wide receiver. I would be happy with either. McDuffie's a guy debated at 21. I don't know if he's going to be here at 21. I didn't think he probably wouldn't be, so I didn't want to take McDuffie. Um, I'm having to go with Jamison Williams. I think he could be here at 21. Uh, Funny thing is, we pay our receivers a lot of money, like on average, compared to other teams, just because we have a bunch of receivers that we pay like a little bit. We don't have a guy that we paid 20 million, but we have a three 10+ million guys, which I think is tied for the most in the league. And we have probably one of the worst, if not maybe the worst, wide receiver core like in the league outside of like the legit trash teams. Um, I think Jameson Williams could be the number one guy that allows Kendrick Bourne to be the number two slash allows Devontae Parker to be a number two because this team's just not going anywhere if Devontae Parker and Kendrick Bourne are your 1A and 1B. I think they're good players. I think they could both be like an okay or good number two, right? If they could be the 2A and 2B, I think you're pretty happy with that considering where this wide receiver core was like 2 years ago. But I think you need a number one. I think Jameson Williams could be that number one. So I have them going Williams.
All right, so you have them taking Williams. Now, just a question, but let's say Williams is gone, Wilson's gone, or Olave's gone. That leaves, I guess, that leaves a couple of receivers left. That would leave London, Dotson, and well, what was the guy you already took him in the draft? I forget what his name is.
Burks, Traylon Burks.
Burks, yeah. I'm assuming you'd probably pick Burks out of those three guys if at 21.
Yeah, I think so. I need to like let that develop in the take furnace, over the
Yeah,
next few weeks. But that would probably be my next take if I was taking a wide receiver. Here's what I'll say: I don't think Bill wants to take a wide receiver, but I do think he'll face some external pressure from his draft team, which I think he's delegated more responsibility to. And I think Kraft wants to see them take a wide receiver as well. Does that have much of a factor into it? I don't know, but I think his draft guys wanting to take a wide receiver, that has a factor. Does Kraft wanting to take a wide receiver have a factor? I don't know. Probably not, but I think that could happen. I think they could go corner too, but I honestly am kind of scared of McDuffie. 5'11" to me, 5'11", not a big guy. Is he a true number one? I'm not sure. Is he going to be able to match up against your Mike Evanses of the world? Not that he's in the AFC, but is he going to go? Is he going to go head to head with Devontae Adams if they got up? Whenever they play, probably not. So yeah.
yeah. But that's Patriots at 21. Um, my at 24, the Cowboys. I was debating between two guys. I think it probably will come down to these two guys. It may come down to a couple other guys. One of these guys actually may go to the second round, which I'm very surprised about. That's Nakobe Dean. He was a for sure first round top 10 pick after the national championship game. And like I just said, there's reports that he could go in the second round. So I don't really know what's happened, to be honest. He's still the same guy he was. He didn't get injured. Nothing really happened. So I'm kind of confused as to exactly why that's happening. But I mean, he's just a perfect linebacker. And again, I'm looking at this as if you're taking Nakobe Dean, it's all for Micah Parsons. It's to free him up so he can play linebacker, he can play defensive end, he can do whatever he wants if you have Nakobe Dean on your team because he basically is just a lesser version of Micah Parsons, but he's strictly a linebacker. So he's explosive off the ball. He can stop the run. He's a sideline to sideline type guy. So I just think like he's a perfect guy for that. He just frees up Micah so much. But like I said, he may go second round, so he may not even really be a true possibility here. But if it comes down to it, and it seems like that he kind of is going to go around there, I would be totally okay with this pick. I really do like Nakobe Dean. But the other position of need is offensive line. Um, Guard in particular. Now our tackles, obviously, we lost La'el Collins. At right tackle, Tyron Smith's obviously still a left tackle, still Pro Bowl type player, but obviously he's a lot older, injuries, everything like that. So the guy I was looking at was Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. He's a guard, but he can play tackle if you need him to. Big guy, 6'4", 323. I could see him, I could see them putting him at guard or just swinging him out to tackle on the right side. I'd be definitely okay with this pick. I think that we for sure need to, solidify our offensive line, because of age and injuries. So I'd be great with this pick. I think it's a good pick. I think he's a solid guy. Will he be, like our other offensive line picks and Tyron Smith and Zach Martin, where you're, all pro, Pro Bowl type guys every single year? I don't know about that, but I think he could be a solid starter, someone that you could trust, someone who's reliable. And I think that's really all you need, especially at right tackle or even a guard position. You just need him to be solid. And I think that's what he can be. So I'm okay with those picks. Even if it's not those guys in particular, I think those positions is what you need is offensive line and linebacker, or defensive end, defensive end linebacker, whichever one it is. It's basically the same position when you have Micah. So whoever those guys are, I'm okay with. I just think those positions are our top two needs for sure at 24 with the guys who will be available.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting you to take Zion's cousin, Zion Williamson's cousin, Zion Johnson. I
His
believe that's
cousin
how
with
that works.
yeah, cousin with a different last name but same first name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hopefully, he doesn't have like the in theory, work ethic or dietary problems that
Doesn't have the
Zion Williamson
genetics
does.
from Zion. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can see that. I do think lineman is a position in need, and ideally, you try to free up with the loss of Gregory, especially you try to free up as much room for as many single teams as possible for Parsons next year.
Yeah. And just
I,
one quick thing, we did take Jabril Cox out of LSU in the fourth round last year. He tore his ACL last year, so that could change things because he like they were viewing him as being the starting linebacker for this season. So maybe that changes things. Maybe they wouldn't go Nakobe Dean or they'd go strictly defensive line or offensive line. But again, one of those positions is for sure the need.
just one quick thing on the Patriots, I guess. The one guy I really wouldn't want them to see, I wouldn't actually be mad if they were able to take McDuffie at 21 because I think he's a guy that probably goes before 21. And even though he is 5'11, the method I've seen that I really like for the Patriots and I think works pretty well, they've been able to scheme it well, is we can put our number two corner and our safety on the number one receiver and then stick our number one corner on the number two receiver one on one. And it gets pretty tricky, unless it's like a Tyreek Hill type guy, who can still beat double coverage, even with a safety over the top, beat him deep. I think that's a good strategy. The one guy I don't want to see them take is Andrew Booth. I don't know exactly when he's going to go. I've seen him mocked in
Yeah.
some drafts as high as like 15. I've also seen some drafts where he's not even in the first round. So, but he's a guy that, as far as I'm aware, again, I Booth's a guy I want to look at some more, but initial impressions, he's a zone corner guy. I'll be honest, I don't want to play zone coverage in 2022 in the NFL. To me, especially in the AFC, the better quarterbacks in the league tear up zone defense, in my opinion. And I think you can do really well in zone defense, but I think zone defense is like the 2013 Atlanta, whatever that year of the Atlanta Hawks when they went 66 and like 16, won the first seed and then lost to the Cavs in the playoffs. To me, that's like zone defense in the NFL. Is like, you're going to beat Zach Wilson. You're going to probably beat Tua. You're going to probably beat some of these other guys that may not have, offensive-minded coaches or a great quarterback. But in the playoffs against Burrow and
Allen,
Burrow,
Mahomes.
Allen, Mahomes, maybe even Lamar Jackson, probably not, but maybe even Lamar Jackson, like it gets tricky because they're just going to tear zone up all day, every day. So, and unless you have an elite pass rush, I think it's hard to pull off zone defense. And barring Matthew Judon playing how he played in the first half of the season, which is like an all-pro level guy, you need more. You even need more than that. You would need an all-pro and probably a Pro Bowler too. So, I don't want to see them take Andrew Booth because I don't want to see them continue to go down that zone coverage trend because they played a lot of zone last year. I think we're only going to see more of it, which I disagree with because no J.C. Jackson to me means you're not playing man with like Jordan Mills and Malcolm Butler. Like you're getting killed if you play man. So, I don't know. I think our defense is in a tough spot, but
Yeah, I actually definitely agree with that. I hate playing zone. I hate when the Cowboys play zone. It seems like it's a guarantee 8 yard catch every single time. You just sit in the zone, you find the soft spots in the zone. It's a guaranteed like 8 yard catch, and then if they can have a little bit of run, then they do that. But I hate playing zone. I totally agree with that sentiment. But that's it for the first mock draft. This is 1.0. Obviously, we're going to do a 2.0 and a 3.0. The next one will be this time next week. And then we don't know if we're going to do trades on it yet or not. We don't know. But for the next one, for sure, for the last one, there will be trades if you want to do them or not. But yeah, again, we'll see how much it changes. I think it will be somewhat similar. I think the third one is for sure the one where it's going to change the most. But yeah, we'll see how different it is from our first one to our second one.
Yeah, for sure. Other than this video, stay tuned for some other content. Like we said, the mock drafts. Also, MLB content. We still got to do over and unders, win totals for the regular season. I don't think we ever reacted to the ones from last season. That would kind of be interesting just to look at. Maybe we talk about it for a few minutes in the next video. Whenever we record the MLB one, we may record that right now. We may not. We'll see. NBA content is still a thing we got to talk about. Regular season coming to an end. Lakers out of the playoffs. And there's still NFL stuff to talk about too. So there's a lot to talk about. We're going to be here to talk about it. Stay tuned again. Probably next video you'll see is an MLB over under regular season win total. It may be out when you're watching this video right now. If it is, the link will be in the description to that video, or also it'll just be on the channel as well. But unless you have anything else left to say, that's it.
That's it.
All right. Goodbye.